Parents, the June SAT is less than 4 months away. So if you haven't started your teen's SAT prep yet, this is exactly what you need to do. For those of you guys that don't know me yet, my name is Jared Wynn. I'm the founder and director of Geometry Guru's SAT prep. And at this point in my career, I've helped hundreds of students increase their SAT scores so that they can go to the dream colleges or qualify for scholarships. With that being said, let's get straight into it. This is the 3-step method that your team needs to use to get that 1500 or above on their next June SAT. Step number 1 is what we call here the efficiency index. Okay, so a lot of students, the way they start prep is that they just do a bunch of practice problems or a bunch of practice tests without actually knowing what their specific weaknesses are. So basically, they're just going in shotgun approach, completely blind, right? They're just kind of hoping and praying that whatever they do is going to magically increase their score. That's not what happens, okay? Because a lot of your students, they actually know a lot more than you think they do, right? So there are 64 concepts on every single SAT, right? But you actually don't need to be studying all 64 of them. For example, right? Like you have teens that are in sports, other extracurriculars, AP classes, IB programs. They don't have time to go over every single one of the 64 concepts. Reality is most students only need to focus on 15 to 16 of those 64 concepts. So what we do here is that we do a comprehensive diagnostic process on your teen so that we can understand exactly which of the 64 SAT concepts do they actually need the most help in? Not just a generic diagnostic exam that says, okay, hey, you got this wrong, right? Not just what you got wrong, but why you actually got that question wrong. Because in reality, there's only 3 reasons why you would ever get something wrong on the SAT. The first one is obviously you never learned it, you forgot it, right? You don't understand the concept. That one's pretty straightforward. The second one is, okay, yeah, you understand the problem, but you ran out of time, right? You didn't have the strategy to finish it on time. The third one is, okay, I spent so much time on the beginning portion of the modules that by the time I got to the end part of the modules, I was burned out, I was fatigued, I was running out of stamina, so I made silly mistakes. So if you do not know exactly why you're actually making those mistakes, then I don't care how much targeting that you do, you're not going to attack the true underlying issue as to why you are making those mistakes, okay? Now, how do we actually check for this? You got to take a look at every single problem, not just the problems that you got wrong, even the problems that you got right. Let me give you an example, okay? Let's say during your diagnostic, you got something correct on the exam. A lot of students, because they got it correct, would never practice that, right? But let's say you do your analysis and you see that you actually spent 5 minutes on that particular problem. So even if you got that question correct, does that mean that that's a strength? No, because you spent 5 minutes on that problem. So the whole point of the efficiency index is to also identify the false strengths and the false weaknesses. Because on the contrary, let's say you got something wrong, but it's at the end of the module. You actually understand how to do it, but you only had 10 to 15 seconds on those problems because you spent so much time on the problem that took you 5 minutes, right? So if you understand it, but you ran out of time, does that mean it's a weakness? No. Okay, so that's exactly why we need to do a deep dive into the exact reason why you're making those mistakes. So we can say, hey, is this a real weakness or is this just a weakness on paper? Step number 2 is what we call here the pressure protocol. Okay, the pressure protocol. So once we understand exactly which of the 64 concepts you actually need to work on, now we give you real SAT problems that mimic the same types of problems that we identified in the efficiency index, except we make them slightly harder and we make them timed as well. Now, there's really only 2 reasons why we do that. Number 1, this gives you the structure that you need because a lot of students, right, they have no structure, right? They either don't do prep at all or they they don't know how to fit it into their day-to-day, right? With the pressure protocol, it gives you a structure in which you're able to learn the concepts, strategies, and techniques, but most importantly, they're able to do it in a test-like environment that is harder than the real thing. So by the time they see the real thing, they're just like, okay, yeah, I've done this a million times. It feels like nothing to me, okay? But most importantly, this step is also the validation step, okay? Because not only do we need to in the efficiency index discover whether or not this is a weakness or do we think it's a weakness, we need to actually do a two-factor authentication, right? Verify, hey, is this a real weakness? For example, right? The efficiency index is not always perfect, okay? Because it's the first round of diagnosis. Let's say during the efficiency index, we noticed that we thought initially it was a weakness, right? But then in the pressure protocol, when we up the difficulty and up the pressure, you're getting it correct over and over and over and over again. So even if you got it wrong in the initial efficiency index, or we identified it as a weakness in the efficiency index, if you're getting it correct all the time during the pressure protocol, then hey, that actually disproves that weakness. That weakness probably is actually a strength. Okay, so the whole point of the pressure protocol is to, yes, of course, put you in an environment that is harder than the real thing so that it doesn't feel like anything when you take it. But most importantly, we need to verify if the efficiency index actually got the correct data. Step number 3 here is what we call here the test simulation. Okay, so the test simulation only works if you have efficiently done step 1 and step 2. If you don't do step 1 and 2, then step number 3 is not going to really help you, okay? So what a lot of students do is either A, they don't work with enough practice exams, or B, when they do their practice exam, they're just way too easy in comparison to the real thing. So what we do here is that we work with tests that are slightly harder than the real SAT, so that by the time, again, you see the real thing, it's just like you're clocking in, you're clocking out. It's like, yeah, it's just like any other Saturday. But most importantly, you got to do enough tests. But the only way that this works, again, is if you diagnose the weaknesses and if you verify the weaknesses and practice them over and over and over again, right? Like just doing a bunch of test simulations back to back to back to back without doing step 1 and 2, it's not going to get you anywhere, okay? If anything, that's going to burn you out and also kind of like make you upset because you haven't been, improving on your weaknesses. So that's exactly the 3-step process that your team should be using in order to increase their score. Because the beauty is, once you simulate the test environment, you go back to the efficiency index and you do the entire thing over and over and over again, right? So reality is you should be going through this every single week, okay? So imagine how your team will be scoring, how much more confident they'll be feeling at the end of 10 to 12 weeks if all they did was just this over and over and over again, okay? That brings me to my honorable mention is consistency. Just doing this 1 to 2 times is not enough. You need to be doing this over and over and over again and not be skipping weeks, not be missing assignments, not be forgetting that you need to be doing these steps. Okay. It's just like if you're trying to lose weight, right? You got to go on a good diet and you got to go on a good exercise regimen. You can't be skipping weeks. You got to be doing it consistently. Okay, family, that's it for today's video. If you guys need help applying this to your team's unique situation, go ahead and send me a DM or send me an email. No obligations. I'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction. Okay. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.